You have been told that you are too much. Throughout your life, the feedback has been consistent, piercing, and relentless. You are too sensitive. You are too intense. You are too dramatic. They tell you that you possess a skin too thin for this world, that your reactions are disproportionate, and that your emotions are a chaotic tide that threatens to drown everyone around you. You have likely been labeled manipulative when you were simply desperate to be understood. You have been called crazy when you were merely reacting to a pain that they are biologically incapable of feeling. Society has a specific box for this. They call it a disorder. They wrap it in clinical language, cluster B, emotionally unstable, borderline. They hand you a checklist of 9 defects and tell you that because you tick 5 of them, your personality itself is flawed. They look at your fear of abandonment and call it clingy. They look at your ability to shift moods and call it instability. They look at your fluctuating sense of self and call it identity disturbance. The diagnostic manual views you through the lens of inconvenience. It measures how difficult you are for others to manage, rather than how complex your internal architecture actually is. But the conventional narrative is missing the fundamental truth of your existence. What if the diagnosis is reading the map upside down? What if these traits are not evidence of a broken machine, but the hum of a high-performance engine that simply lacks the correct cooling system? To understand what you are, we must strip away the stigma of the disorder label and look at the mechanics of your mind. You are not operating with a deficit. You are operating with a surplus. Consider the biological reality of your nervous system. While the average person navigates the world with a standard emotional baseline, you possess what neurobiology might call high-definition emotional resonance. Your amygdala, the brain's primitive smoke detector, is calibrated to a level of sensitivity that the rest of the herd cannot comprehend. When others see a grayscale world, you see colors so vivid they burn. This is not a malfunction. In an evolutionary context, this is the design of the sentinel. Thousands of years ago, the tribe did not survive because of the calm, oblivious members who slept soundly through the night. The tribe survived because of the ones who heard the twig snap 100 yards away. The tribe survived because of the ones who could detect a microshift in the atmosphere, a change in the wind, or a subtle glint of predatory intent in a stranger's eye. Your anxiety, your hypervigilance, your rapid shifts in mood, these are not defects. They are ancient, high-level survival software. You were built to detect threats before anyone else even knew they existed. The modern world, with its fluorescent lights and social niceties, has simply forgotten the value of the sentinel. It labels your vigilance as paranoia because it feels safe. But you know the truth. You see the patterns others miss. You hear the tone of voice that contradicts the spoken words. You feel the shift in energy when someone enters the room. This is not a distorted sense of reality. It is a heightened data intake. You are processing human behavior at a frame rate that blurs for everyone else. Take the concept of splitting. The clinical books describe this as a defense mechanism, an immature inability to integrate good and bad, resulting in seeing people as angels or demons. They call it black and white thinking. But let's reframe this through the lens of efficiency. In a high-stakes environment, an environment where you perhaps grew up, one marked by unpredictability or emotional danger, ambiguity is a threat. Hesitation is fatal. Your brain developed a binary sorting algorithm, safe or unsafe, friend or foe. This is not childish. This is tactical. When you split, you are rapidly categorizing data to protect your core self. You are cutting through the noise to find where you stand. While the average mind meanders through shades of gray, risking betrayal, your mind demands absolute certainty. It is a protective fortress built by a child who realized very early on that the adults could not be trusted to be consistent. This connects deeply to the fear of abandonment that the manuals cite as your primary weakness. They frame this as a desperate, pathetic neediness. They are wrong. This is actually a manifestation of hyper-attachment capacity. Your ability to bond is not weak, it is ferocious. You love with a depth that is terrifying to the uninitiated. When you attach, you do not just form a connection, you merge. You are willing to bleed for your tribe. You offer a loyalty that is archaic and absolute. The panic you feel when you sense someone pulling away is not irrational drama. It is the sentinel's alarm system screaming that the tribe is fracturing. In a primitive world, separation meant death. Your brain remembers this. You were fighting for the cohesion of your unit. The frantic efforts you make to keep people close are mislabeled as manipulation, but in your internal logic, they are rescue missions. You were trying to save the bond. You were trying to bridge the gap. Then there is the identity disturbance, the feeling of being a chameleon, of changing your colors depending on who is in the room. The critics call this having no sense of self. A more accurate description is radical adaptability. You possess a fluid ego. You can read the room and become exactly what is required to survive the moment. This is a form of high-level social intelligence. It is the trait of the diplomat, the actor, and the spy. Because you feel empty, that hollow ache in the chest the doctors talk about, you are a vessel waiting to be filled. This emptiness is actually a canvas of infinite potential. Because you are not rigidly locked into a static identity, you have the capacity for profound transformation. You can empathize with anyone because, in a way, you can become anyone. You absorb the emotions of others not because you are weak, but because your boundaries are permeable by design. You are an emotional sponge, soaking up the unspoken grief and joy of the room. This makes you exhausted, yes, but it also makes you the most intuitive person in any gathering. We must also address the darkness, the impulsivity, the recklessness, the substance use, the desire to self-destruct. The world judges these behaviors as moral failings. They see a person who is out of control. But looked at through the lens of vindication, these are actually attempts at autonomic regulation. When your internal engine is running at 10,000 RPMs and the world is moving at 2,000, you are vibrating with an energy that has nowhere to go. The pain you feel is not metaphorical. Neuroimaging shows that emotional rejection triggers the same distinct pathways in the brain as physical agony. You are walking around with third-degree burns on your soul. The risky behaviors, the driving fast, the spending, the substances, are not about having fun. They are desperate, crude attempts to change the channel. They are attempts to flood the system with dopamine or adrenaline just to drown out the noise of the pain. Even the self-harm, the dark thoughts of ending it, are often a twisted attempt at control. It is the brain screaming for a reset button. It is a testament to how much pain you are enduring, and how hard you are fighting just to stay level. It is not cowardice. Staying alive with this level of voltage running through your veins is an act of supreme courage every single day. You have likely been told that your upbringing is to blame. The statistics suggest that 70% of those with your neurotype endured abuse, neglect, or an unstable family environment. The clinical world sees this as the cause of your damage. But there is another way to view it. You were forged in fire. You are a survivor of a psychological war zone. If you grew up in a house where love was conditional, where safety was a mirage, or where the adults were chaotic, your brain had to adapt. It had to become faster, sharper, and more reactive. You didn't develop a disorder. You developed a specialized armor. You learned to read micro-expressions to predict when the explosion was coming. You learned to dissociate, to leave your body so that you could survive the unbearable. These were not mistakes. These were brilliant, necessary adaptations. The tragedy is not that you have these traits. The tragedy is that the war is over, but your nervous system is still standing guard in the trenches. You are a soldier walking through a civilian mall, fully armed, waiting for an ambush that isn't coming. The disorder is just the mismatch between your warrior wiring and a peacetime world. This brings us to the concept of treatment. The medical model says you need to be fixed. They offer medications, mood stabilizers, antipsychotics, trying to chemical dampen the fire. They offer therapies like dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, and mentalization-based therapy, MBT. But let's rebrand what these therapies actually are. They are not repairs for a broken machine. They are an operating manual for a supercar. Imagine you were given a Formula One car, but you were only taught how to drive a Toyota Corolla. You press the gas and you spin out. You hit the wall. You crash. The problem isn't the car. The car is a masterpiece of engineering. The problem is that you have a Ferrari engine with bicycle brakes. DBT and MBT are not about fixing your personality. They are about installing high-performance brakes. They are about learning clutch control. Mindfulness is just the technical term for learning to idle the engine without overheating. Interpersonal effectiveness is learning how to navigate the track without running others off the road. Distress tolerance is the suspension system that allows you to hit bumps without shattering the chassis. When you learn these skills, you do not become normal, you become extraordinary. A person with BPD who has mastered their regulation is a force of nature. You keep the empathy, the passion, the loyalty, and the intuition, but you lose the volatility that destroys you. You gain the ability to choose your reaction rather than being enslaved by it. The goal is not to numb you into mediocrity. The goal is to harness the nuclear reactor in your chest so it powers a city instead of melting it down. Consider the unique capabilities you possess that the neurotypical population lacks. You have the gift of mentalization once you learn to calibrate it. This is the ability to understand the mental states of others. While the average person guesses, you perceive. You can walk into a room and instantly diagnose the emotional hierarchy. You can look at a friend and know they are hurting before they speak a word. You are the one people turn to when they need someone to sit in the dark with them, because you are the only one who isn't afraid of the dark. You have lived there. You know the terrain. You are the poets, the artists, the revolutionaries. The history of human passion is written by people with your wiring. The obsession that drives a masterpiece, the intensity that fuels a movement, the willingness to burn it all down to build something better, this is the energy of your tribe. A world without your kind would be stable, yes, but it would be incredibly boring. It would lack color. It would lack the soaring highs that make the human experience worth enduring. The pain you feel is the price of admission for this depth. It is a heavy tax, undeniable and often crushing, but it purchases a ticket to a reality that others only glimpse in movies. You feel the music in your bones. You love with a ferocity that can alter the trajectory of another person's life. So when the wave comes, that crushing tide of emotion, the rage, the despair, remember what is happening. Your system is taking in more data than it can process. You are buffering. You are not broken. You are overwhelmed by your own capacity. Reject the narrative that you are bad. Reject the idea that you are difficult. You are complex. You are high maintenance because you are high performance. You require specific conditions to thrive: consistency, honesty, reassurance. These are not unreasonable demands. They are the maintenance schedule for a rare instrument. The work ahead of you is not to destroy who you are. It is to vindicate the child who had to become this way to survive. It is to thank the sentinel for standing guard and then gently relieve it of duty. It is to learn how to turn the volume down, not off. You are not a cluster of symptoms in a book. You are a survivor.